Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm doing a book review on the book of Unknown Americans by Cristina Henriquez. This story mainly follows two families. The first one is Arturo and Alma. They are husband and wife and have lived in Mexico their entire lives, and they have a 15-year-old daughter named Maribel. One day she sustains a really bad injury and she sort of has a brain injury, and they realize that she isn't going to be able to get the treatment and help and education that she needs in Mexico, so they decide to come to America to get the help that she needs, and they end up moving to Delaware. The other side of the story is you're mainly following Mayor, who lives in the apartment complex that Maribel moves into. He is around the same age as Maribel, and one day he sees her and her mom at the store and basically falls for her. And then interwoven between the chapters of these families is also chapters about the other people who live in the apartment complex. I really enjoyed this book. I'm a bit of a sucker for immigration stories or immigrant stories in general, so I tend to like those as long as they're well written, and this one is definitely one that is well written. The interesting thing about this story is that while you are following mainly these two characters or these two families, like I said, in between those stories you're also finding out about the other immigrants who live in the apartment complex, and all of these different people come from different parts of Latin America. So like I mentioned, Arturo, Alma, and Maribel are from Mexico, but Mayor is from Panama, and another set of family is from Uruguay, and another set is from other parts of, South America and Latin America. So you're seeing a lot of representation happening in this book, which is really nice. This isn't a book that tries to only deal with the issues of Mexican Americans or doesn't try to paint Latin Americans in all just like one big stereotype, which is actually something that they address in here. One thing that is talked about is sort of like the Mexican food or the Latin American food aspect, and how people just assume it's all just the same thing in every country, but not every country eats the same thing, just like not every country in Asia eats the same foods. It also does a really good job of talking about a little bit about just the struggles that immigrants have once they move to this country, the help that they do or don't receive from the people around them, and just like the lack of understanding and just how much they have to sacrifice in order to come to America, and just why they sacrifice those things and what those things mean. You see friendships forming not only between the two kids in the story, but also between the parents as they sort of cling to whatever they can to remind them of home, which is definitely something that I think most immigrants in America, or probably in any country, do. They cling to something that seems familiar to them because everything else in that world is going to be extremely unfamiliar. The romance between Mayor and Maribel is really sweet, like really innocent and really genuine, and feels very much like how crushes feel when you are 15, 16 years old. Another thing about this book that I thought was really interesting, and I'm not sure if I liked it or disliked it, is that it very much places the time period of being current. One of the events that is kind of talked about in this book is the election of Barack Obama during his first election, and just sort of the hope that these people had in this president because, he was a person of color and he brought about all of these ideas about change, and that was his big platform, and, it brought about a lot of hope in people who were not white. And I thought that was really interesting to touch on that, and then she touches on it again later in the book a little bit more once President Obama has been in office for a little while, kind of just the realization that this one man couldn't do quite as much as everyone hoped he could. And obviously while talking about immigrant stories and immigration in general, there might be a little bit of politics that come into play, but I think this book does a really good job of not necessarily landing on one side or the other. Like, obviously these characters are going to fall on a specific side of the issue, but that's not the point of this book. This book isn't about the issues, it's just about the characters. But like, if you were an immigrant in America at this time period, like, you're gonna have thoughts about immigration reform and things like that, but they don't really talk about it hugely, so it's not like if you have a certain political opinion you're going to be upset with this book. But I just thought it was really interesting that she decided to bring in that specific current event into the book and sort of make it more grounded in reality than other books do. Like, like this very much could have been a story that took place in the 90s as much as it took place in the 2000s, you know what I mean? So I thought it was interesting to have that specific event that really grounds the timeline a lot. You read this story and I was pulled in because I really enjoy these characters, but I wasn't really sure what story they were trying to tell, but then by the end of it I had no idea the story was going to go where it went, and it completely surprised me and kind of broke my heart a little bit. In the end, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was a perfect book. I would have liked it to be maybe a little bit longer. I feel like the story does seem a little bit rushed. I think especially because she covers so many different characters, or even if there were just like another 50 pages added to this book so that the world was expanded a little bit more and there was a little bit more development, I would have really liked that. But at the same time, I feel like the way things went feels very real. So I didn't completely discredit the book for that aspect, obviously, but I wouldn't have minded if that had happened either. I definitely recommend this book to people, especially if you are interested in immigrant stories and character-based stories and something that's a little bit different, because I feel like this is a story that hasn't really been told before. So if you're looking for something that's slightly more out of the box, obviously this covers, you know, if you're looking for something that has to deal with more people of color and immigrants and just, you know, diverse reads and things like that, this would definitely be something up your alley. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Book of Unknown Americans. If you have read this book, feel free to leave your comments down below. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave those down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.